So we're going to have a look at Roshan pit and how we can fight around this pit as Roshan is going on, and maybe take the fights a little bit differently. Hopefully this will end up making you win some Roshan fight that you previously wouldn't have without these tips. So the first thing we are going to look at is the advantages of the Radiant and the Dire. If we first have the idea that the stairs is the main way that we're going to get to the Roshan pit. We have 3 stairs on each side. Both of them are quite similar as we end up seeing. So this stairs is kind of beneficial to whoever can stand up on top. However, what we do need to know is that from here, a lot of spells like Crystal Nova cannot reach Roshan pit from here. So we need to walk that bit closer. So a lot of the times you'll see supports, especially on the Radiant side, will stand behind the Rosh pit like this. It makes it very hard for the enemy to see them. As you see, the Fog of War cuts off here, and this is where the enemy can't really see you. There's even some really nice spot here where you can stand in behind the trees, and this creates the Fog of War even smaller, makes it harder. You can stand a little bit further here and essentially abuse this vision. Something similar can be done on the Dire side as well, where standing over in this area is quite difficult to pretty much see any supports sitting here, yet they still have the cast range to use their spells inside the Rosh pit. This can also be gone from over here, taking these stairs. Both the Radiant and Dire can do this on each side, where they can stand at the edge, maybe get some vision in there, cancel some like blink daggers and stuff. And that's really about it for the Rosh pit with like the supports on their positioning. Now what ends up being a little bit different is how we teleport into the fights, and this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So on Radiant, this tower is very important, this safe lane or off lane tier 1. And this tower debatably is a lot more valuable than this offlane tower on Dire side. So the Dire offlane tower, really no one teleports here. The only reason people teleport here is to farm. No one ever has the idea of teleporting here to take a fight strategically after this first 15 minutes of the game. No one really uses it. Whereas here, 45 minutes into the game or 30 minutes into the game, people are still looking to teleport here to access Roshan quickly. It's probably the easiest way, especially if you have a blink dagger. It's a very good way of approaching into the fight and get here without the enemy seeing you. You can also sometimes wrap around the back and catch the supports over here. So that's a really nice thing you can do. Now, if you're not accessing this way from the Roshan pit, usually the mid tier 1 tower is a good way if it's still alive, but often this is dead by the time Roshan is going on, so we see the teleport to this tier 2. Now this is quite a long distance up to Roshan. It's kind of a straight route almost that we can take, but it's not that fast. Now where Dire changes quite dramatically is where the outpost becomes super important to them. So if you're on the Radiant side, if you take this outpost, it makes it very hard for the Dire team to respond to this. This way they end up having to teleport to their tier 2. As we can see, if you have vision at the outpost, the enemy has to go from here and pretty much walk along this path and try and walk around the range of the outpost. And even the Radiant, when they die, they can teleport back to this outpost if they take it. So whoever owns this outpost is going to have a huge advantage with responding with buybacks in the fight, and this is going to end up being a very important structure if you're taking a late game Roshan fight. Now this is also why often you'll see Radiant supports trying to get wards down on this point, so they can see over to the outpost of who is teleporting into this objective. Now you also have observer wards that would be put out here, and usually this is just so that you catch things, but as we saw earlier, standing behind this tree over here will still not catch you in this vision of this observer ward or some similar observer ward to this. So this can also, if you're something like Bat Rider or have a hero that can easily destroy trees, maybe you want to take advantage of this and destroy these trees if you're playing on Dire to make the Radiant not have this small advantage here. But most players will not take advantage of this small little corner here. Certain locations are important to note. This is generally for counter initiation. Pretty much here is a blink dagger spot from up on this cliff. We can blink into Roshan. If we were Slardar or Earthshaker, we can counter initiate there, and the similar one is on Dire, where we can blink in from this cliff up here. Now don't mistake this with this stairs here, because when we're at the stairs we can't blink as well, and it's very obvious once you walk down the stairs. The enemy can see you. They usually have some sort of hero or observer ward standing. They can end up seeing you in this location as well, so the top of the stairs is not always the best spot. Now there's also a nice ward spot if you break this tree, and you can place down an observer ward just here, and it gets super amazing vision. Pretty good, but it doesn't cover everything, but it's definitely one to watch out for. Now one of the other things that we end up looking towards with Roshan is going to be maybe like Aegis snatches, high ground, low ground mobility, pretty much with spider legs. So one of the biggest advantages of spider legs is coming up here. It makes it very hard for the enemy to get you, and the reason why is this would mainly be used for the Dire side. So you can do this on Earth Spirit, you can do it on like Batrider, any hero that can move up and down terrain pretty easily. You could do it with Snapfire, cookie yourself up to escape, and pretty much this even at other parts of the game as well, and it makes it very hard for the enemy to follow you, and mainly because the route to the stairs is a very long path around, and by the time you've walked around to this location, the hero that jumped up the cliff with the spider legs has already reached like this area over here. So pretty much either path going either left or right up the mid stairs or this bottom stairs is going to be very slow. Now the Radiant kind of don't have as good of one, because walking up like this is really not going to get you as much distance, mainly because you're both kind of traveling in similar lines. I kind of like maybe give a diagram showing this. So the next thing I want to cover with the Roche Pit, and this can be used at different points of the game to escape or do whatever, but pretty much if you're going in to snatch the Aegis, the best way to escape is going to be over the top part of the Roche Pit. The reason why is because when you go in like this and you can force that out, if the enemy don't have a way to follow you, they're going to have to walk the whole way around. So if we have a look from here and we click over at this point, now our hero turns around and goes this way. So what you don't want to do is blink in, click the ground over here. You can see how our hero is turned around and facing a different direction. If we go and blink in, click here, and then force staff, we end up going out here, and this is where all the chaos and fighting is probably going to go on, and this is not really where you want to be. Now one of the other things you can do with warding is, I forgot to mention, was that if you place like an aggressive ward down here, you can catch all of the Dire supports, or pretty much sometimes a squishy mid laner like Zeus will also position himself back here, and pretty much you can keep spamming their spells in at the back. And something similar can be done here on this side with this observer ward if you break this tree. That's not always the easiest tree to break. You can kill that with spider legs, or another good ward is obviously onto this cliff, because you can see all the heroes teleporting into this tower if you have not killed it already. So generally something that you may want to look at before you end up taking a Roshan fight if you're on Dire side is to make sure you kill this tower. On Radiant side, something to take away from this is make sure that you take the enemy's outposts so that you control this part of the map, and pretty much this will give you a huge advantage before you even start the Roche fight. So hopefully this makes your Roshan fight that little bit better, and if you want to see more Dota content like this, make sure you subscribe.